Let's return to the war in Ukraine. And the commander-in-chief of Ukraine's army, Valerii Zaluzhnyi, has laid out his strategy for defeating Russia and the challenges his country faces. With increasingly limited funding from its allies, he says Ukraine must seize the moment and improve its use of technology to commit fewer resources and inflict maximum damage on the enemy. His stance comes amid rumours of a rift between the general and Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Let's go live now to Professor of International Security at the University of Birmingham, Stefan Wolf. Professor Wolf, thank you very much for being with us. Talk about General Zaluzhny's strategy. What does he say he thinks they should be doing?
Well, I think what Zaluzhny is saying in his recent essay is that there is a much greater role for technology, especially for unarmed vehicles. Ukraine has been very successful using both air drones and sea drones over the past several months. And Zaluzhny wants this to be better integrated into Ukraine military doctrine. That, in his words, would require both more support from state institutions, better financing, more flexibility, but probably also different types of training of new personnel being brought into the armed forces.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned funding because Ukraine only has a limited pot. It's been relying heavily on support from both its European allies and in the United States. We heard earlier on this week about the funding approval in Europe. It's still pending in America. Are there backup plans in case it doesn't come?
I think the backup plan would be to have more public-private partnerships, so where there would be more private sector investment, especially from defense companies, into the development and production of new technologies, which then, of course, also could be made available to other countries. So there could be an actual business case for investing from the private sector into the defense industrial base in Ukraine.
We're obviously looking at this through the international angle, but there is, of course, a domestic angle on this as well. And General Zaluzhny has butted up, if you like, against President Zelenskyy on a few occasions. How are the two men perceived within Ukraine?
I think it's quite similar and different at the same time. So they both have relatively high approval ratings, but Zaluzhny's approval ratings are significantly higher even than Zelenskyy's. Zaluzhny probably in the mid to high 80s in terms of the trust that Ukrainians have in him. Zelenskyy is still very good, sort of mid to high 60s, but it is a difference, and I think that has to some extent contributed to the reported rift between the two. But this is not just a personal rivalry, and I think it's important to keep that in mind. This is really also a difference in terms of the general strategic direction of the war, where Zaluzhny, I think, has his feet more on the ground, has a better grasp of what is actually possible for Ukraine, where Zelenskyy primarily makes very aspirational statements about the full recovery of Ukraine's territory, which Zaluzhny doesn't deny is feasible and desirable, but they probably differ quite significantly over the methods and the time frame within which this can be achieved.
Okay. Stefan Wolf, Professor of International Security at the University of Birmingham. Professor, very good to get your insights. Thank you.